Good morning to those joining us in Korea and good evening to those in Chile. I am Hee Kyung-sun, Communications Lead of the Global Green Growth Institute, GGGI, and would like to welcome you to this virtual event to discuss the role of oceans in the context of global climate change and to better understand the integration of nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and climate action. Excellencies, distinguished panelists and participants, on behalf of the Embassy of Chile to the Republic of Korea and GGGI, I would like to thank you all for taking time to join us on this meaningful event. During the sessions, please feel free to make comments or ask questions through the meeting chat box. It's a great opportunity to engage directly with the panelists. Let me give you an overview of today's event. We will begin the event with video messages from the Minister of the Environment of Chile and the President and Chair of GGGI, which will then be followed by 2 sessions. Now, under the theme of NDCs and the integration of ambitious climate action, Session 1 will be joined by representatives of the Ministry of the Environment of Chile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, the Green Climate Fund GCF, and GGGI. Session 2, a high-level representative will be joining us from the Ministry of Water and Seas of Costa Rica, the coordinator of the COP25 presidency, and the Ambassador of Chile to Korea to present ideas on the roles of oceans in the context of global climate discussion. Now, a full recording of today's event will be available on GGGI's website, gggi.org. We will be circulating a link to the recording shortly after the event. Now, without further ado, let's listen to a video message from Carolina Schmidt, Minister of the Environment of Chile.
As Minister of the Environment of Chile and President of COP25, I am pleased to share opening remarks in this event. I want to thank the Global Green Growth Institute and the Embassy of Chile for holding this event. Climate change is the truly severe challenge that humanity will face this century. Deal it urgently is a global ethical imperative. Conscious of the serious impact that climate change generates throughout the world and the need to articulate effective global responses, Chile assumed the responsibility of presiding over COP25. COP25 was the Blue COP, recognizing the deep commitment of Chile to the ocean's protection. Since 2018, Chile has a national ocean policy, which aims for a sustainable development that harmonically combines diverse uses, balances protection and conservation of our marine ecosystems, the economic activities, the sovereign, and the security. This policy is consistent with the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals, especially the number 14, Life Below Water. One important step to comply with this SDG 14 is the creation of 42 marine protected areas and a total of almost 150 million hectares protected, representing 43% of our exclusive economic zone in Chile. This makes our country the 6th with the greatest coverage of protected marine areas, far beyond the 10% committed on the IT Target 11. In addition, Chile led the 2019 the development of a roadmap on marine debris within APEC. It aims to prevent the impacts of the marine environment of solid waste, especially plastics and microplastic. This roadmap was adopted by all 21 APEC economies and it's currently being implemented. Undoubtedly, the ocean is a priority for Chile, especially due to the fundamental role as a global climate regulator. The special report on ocean and cryosphere from the IPCC warned us about the severity of the impacts of climate change in the ocean, which will be increasingly dangerous if the world does not urgently take bold mitigation and adaptation action. The ocean takes up almost 30% of all the CO2 emitted and 90% of the additional heat caused by the climate change. The ocean and its ecosystems are suffering devastating consequences, which we need to address urgently. In COP21, Chile partnered with many other countries to launch the Because the Ocean Declaration that highlighted the urgency of bringing the ocean into the climate change discussion. As COP25 president, we foster this effort in this direction, achieving that the decision 1CP25 mandates a dialogue on ocean and climate in order to consider how to strengthen mitigation and adaptation action in this context. This dialogue was successfully held last December 2020, led by the chair of subsidiary body for scientific and technological advice, SBASTA, who will prepare a summary report on the dialogue's outcomes. In addition, in COP25, we launched a science-based ocean solutions platform that congregates initiatives, tools, and methodologies that governments can use to develop climate policies in the ocean. In our revised NDCs, we included the ocean as a contribution for both mitigation and adaptation objectives, integrating the proposal of Chile Scientific Committee, taking into account the experience with the establishment of marine protected areas. Chile's NDCs will pursue the following general objectives regarding ocean: implementation of marine protected areas and developing and adapting management plans for all our marine protected areas, including climate change consideration. We also, in our new NDC, create a new protected area in coastal areas and represented marine ecoregions, including climate change effects among the selection criteria. Third, we create an assessment of the climate change mitigation and/or adaptation benefits provided by different ecosystems in marine protected areas. As presidency of COP25, we have strongly promoted the incorporation of the protection and sustainable management of the ocean in the NDCs of countries in the new commitments acquired. In our long-term climate strategy, Chile also are integrating the ocean as a key pillar for the resilience and sustainable development we want. We are convinced that climate change and biodiversity loss are absolutely interlinked and must be addressed jointly. Science has been clear: protecting at least 30% of our planet's lands and ocean is the minimum required to maintain the planet's dynamic balance that allows life as we know it. This year, 2021, in the Convention on Biological Diversity, COP15, we have an excellent opportunity to establish new and ambitious goals on the post-2020 framework. For the reason, Chile supports ambition in ocean conservation and implementation of marine protected areas, as well as other effective area-based conservation measures. To this end, last year, we joined the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, the Blue Leaders Campaign, and the Global Ocean Alliance, initiatives aiming to achieve the protection of the 30% of our ocean by 2030. Protect our marine ecosystem means also protecting the sustainability of our societies, and particularly the communities that depend on the ocean. Dear friends, we face significant challenges. No doubt, after COVID-19 crisis, we have a unique opportunity to accelerate our transformation to a greener, more inclusive, sustainable, low carbon and resilient development pathway. We need you in the same way. Thank you.
Now that was a very insightful video message from the Minister. Next, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, President of the Assembly and Chair of the Council of the Global Green Growth Institute and the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, has shared a video message with us. Let's take a look.
Minister of Environment of Chile, Carolina Schmidt, Vice Minister of Water and Seas of Costa Rica, Heidi Rodriguez, Ambassador of Chile, Gloria Cid Carreño, Deputy Director General of the Global Green Growth Institute, Ambassador Jenny Kim, distinguished speakers and guests, ladies and gentlemen. First, allow me to express my warm appreciation for this opportunity to welcome all participants to this virtual event and briefly emphasize the importance of designing nationally determined contributions, NDCs, with all the necessary elements such as oceans and biodiversity to catalyze real and ambitious climate action. Last year, the COVID-19 pandemic forced me to participate in many of these virtual events, and I was pleased to participate in similar events that the Global Green Growth Institute co-organized with the Dutch Embassy, the New Zealand Embassy, and other embassies to share experiences and ideas and to help the world step up its climate commitments and actions. In this regard, I welcome the Chilean Embassy's efforts to partner and co-organize this virtual event with the GGGI. I believe these forums are very important for sharing the experiences and practices by the global community so that in the end we can seize the momentum and raise the level of climate ambitions together. The momentum I refer to is the significant progress made during the latter half of 2020. When the COVID-19 pandemic shook the entire world near the start of the year, much of the optimism and anticipation for what was hoped to be a year of action took a major hit as we scrambled to urgently address the pandemic's unprecedented effects on public health and our economies. However, despite the immense challenges of 2020, the new policies such as Green New Deals, both in Korea and elsewhere, and the new carbon neutrality commitments, such as those by China, Japan, and Korea, were very significant contributions to building up the momentum in the second half of 2020. And the election of a new government in the United States will likely add a big boost to tackling the climate crisis. Starting off the year 2021, this very week, the incoming US administration is expected to embark on a major U-turn from the path of the preceding 4 years and place high priority on climate issues. As the Secretary General of the United Nations, I worked closely with then Secretary of State John Kerry to realize the Paris Climate Accord in 2015. I look forward to working with him again in his new role as a special presidential envoy for climate to welcome the US back to the Paris Climate Accord and to bring about lots of progress in the fight against climate change in 2021. And 2021 will be very critical. This year, as the world's governments implement the policies that were made last year to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, we can help build back better and make sure that the recovery is green and not back to business as usual. It is with this understanding that GGGI is working to provide technical assistance and support to its members and partners on their recovery packages. If we all continue to seize these opportunities now to green the recovery, in the long run, we can make a difference. So we can look back to this time with pride. A great place to start is NDCs, which I understand is the topic for session one today. NDCs need to be ambitious in the degree of committed efforts, but we also need to make sure that NDCs incorporate all the right elements and that key elements such as oceans, wetlands, and biodiversity are not left out. I hope the discussions of the second session on the role of oceans, which serves as a major heat and carbon sink and is of the utmost importance for biodiversity, will contribute to their recognition and incorporation into government policies. I know the government of Chile already delivered an update of its enhanced NDCs last year and became the first from the region to do so. Chile should be commended for this, and I hope the discussions today will be helpful for other countries to follow. I wish you all very productive discussions today with a sense of ambition and urgency, but also with optimism and hope. Once again, I'd like to express my thanks to the organizers and the distinguished participants of the two sessions to follow. And I extend to all of you my very wishes for a very green, successful, and happy New Year. Thank you. 감사합니다. Muchas gracias.
Now, as Mr. Bond mentioned, 2021 will be a critical year for climate action. Now, let's move on to session one. It is my pleasure to introduce the moderator of session one, Hyun Jenny Kim. Jenny is GGGI's Deputy Director General and Head of Green Growth Planning and Implementation. Now, I would like to pass the virtual podium over to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Hee-kyung. And distinguished delegates, dear participants, good morning and good afternoon or good evening for everybody. And I am very pleased to moderate this session on NDCs and integration of climate action. As Hee-kyung introduced, my name is Hyun Jenny Kim, and I'm the Deputy Director General of Global Green Growth Institute. Maybe I don't need to explain what GGGI is, because I guess all of you are already very well aware of what GGGI is doing. Therefore, first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Chilean Embassy in Korea, who is jointly organizing this important event. As two speakers at the opening session already mentioned, actually Paris Agreement is really a milestone in global efforts against climate change. The overarching aim of the Paris Agreement is to reduce greenhouse gas emission and ensure that global temperature does not rise more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels this century, and ultimately pursue a scenario where temperature rise remains below 1.5 degrees Celsius. To achieve these goals, every country needs to play its part. So because countries have different circumstances, resources, and abilities, the agreement was designed for each country to define their own pledges in terms of targets and contributions to the universal agreement. These country pledges are the NDCs. Therefore, we can say that NDC is the most crucial vehicle to transform Paris ambition into reality. Therefore, it is really meaningful for us to have a discussion about NDCs and integration of climate action this morning. Particularly, I would like to express great congratulations to the government of Chile. As the president of COP25, Chile already submitted the updated NDC last year, as the first country from Latin America. Although all UNFCCC member countries are requested to submit their updated NDCs by the end of 2020, but just 45 parties, so 44 countries and European Union, 27 countries as one bloc, they met this deadline. Therefore, at the outset of 2021, we really, the global community must redouble its efforts to improve their NDCs for countries who didn't do so yet. And also we are going to encourage countries to submit their updated NDCs as early as possible. And particularly, I noticed that the Chilean NDC has very strong components like oceans and also the social inclusion component. So I'm going to invite the representative of Chile to provide further elaboration on these very important elements. So we have excellent panelists this morning. We have two government representatives from Chile and Korea. And these two countries, they already submitted their updated NDC before the end of last year. Therefore, I can say that they are leading the global efforts in climate actions. And we have two representatives from international organizations who are actively supporting countries' NDC works. So we have representatives from GCF, Green Climate Fund, and a representative from GGGI. So Carolina Urmeneta, Head of Climate Change from the Ministry of Environment of Chile. Hello, Carolina. So she is connected. Yes, good to see you. And Director General Ki Yong-chung on Climate Change, Energy, Environment, and Science Affairs from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Korea. Hello, Ki-yong. Very good to see you. Yes. And Anya Grubicki, Deputy Director of External Affairs from the Global from Green Climate Fund, GCF in Songdo. Hello, are you connected? If you don't mind, can you just turn on your video camera? Let me, maybe maybe she's going to join very shortly. And I have my colleague from this organization, Ingvild Solvang, Head of Climate Action and Inclusive Development from Global Green Growth Institute. Hello, Ingvild, good morning. Can you hear me? She is connected, actually.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, great. Yes, so dear panelists, so I would like to proceed this session with 2 rounds of discussions, if you agree. First, I will ask a couple of questions to each of you. And once we finish the first round, then I will invite you again for second round discussion with further questions. So considering the time constraint, I would like to ask you to limit your answers, excuse me, within 5 to 7 minutes each time. So let me invite Carolina from Chile first. As the chair of COP25, Chile is indeed playing a leading role in climate action. I was pretty impressed with the speech by Madam Minister, Minister of Environment from Chile, who strongly emphasized the element of ocean and biodiversity, natural conservation. So I noticed that Chile's efforts to highlight those elements are very well appreciated by other countries. And particularly, I think it gives a lot of implication to many countries who have oceans. I mean, for example, Korea. Korea is a peninsula, so Korea is surrounded by oceans as well. Therefore, oceans and ocean affairs and marine conservation, biodiversity in the ocean are also very important element in Korea as well. And also I noticed that Chile's NDC includes a social pillar on just transition and the sustainable development goals. Actually, climate change action, it is a new opportunity. However, at the same time, there are people who are vulnerable to the effect of climate change and also who may lost their job opportunities because of climate action. Therefore, it is very important for the government to include those people in the efforts against climate action. Therefore, Carolina, just can you elaborate a little bit about these new elements in Chilean NDCs? So what actually the social component and ocean components mean in your NDCs, and particularly what criteria were considered to build these new pillars? So over to you, Carolina.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you all for this invitation to the Global Center Grow. It is a pleasure to be here, and I have a slide to show you where you can see this social pillar and where we could see also this contribution on oceans. So let me show you. I am just going to go to 2 slides. I think I could do it. Yes, here it is. Are you seeing my desk?
Yeah, it is. Yes, we can see the slide.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. Now that you are seeing the slide on my desk, you could see the structure of our NDC. It has 3 big pillars, which are mitigation, adaptation, and integration. And these 3 components have a big pillar, which is a social pillar. Like as you were saying, it is really important because we need that climate action goes to the people in their territories. And that is why we include a commitment to have a just transition strategy for our decarbonization process. We need to clean our energy matrix, and we relate all the commitment on our NDC to the Sustainable Development Goals. And you could see, I'm going to show you right now because I don't want to extend a lot my answer, and I'm not going to show specific goals on each component of the NDC, but I'm going just to go to the ocean. There we have an integration commitments where we have commitments on adaptation and on mitigation, and there we have oceans and coastline, wetlands, peatlands, forests, and circular economy. I'm just going to show you the first 2 of them, which is oceans, where we have a new commitment, and you could see in our NDC how these commitments are related and linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. This is pictures of our NDC, which have more information, of course, because we had a participation process, and after that participation process where we listened the people that are involved in these areas, we developed a new commitment that is updated in our NDC and consider this commitment, for example, of new marine protected areas that protect at least 10% of our economic exclusive zones. We consider, of course, also, as you were saying, that all marine protected areas created by 2020 will have management plans, because we protect a lot of areas, but we need to have management in order to protect them and to manage with sustainable these areas. And also we consider wetland protections, which is really important for Chile, and we have a big plan on this area. And also, I have more diapos, but I'm not going to show you everything. But it's important to consider that we have a component on adaptation, as I was showing you in the first slide. And in this component, we consider adaptations plans, and we consider a special new plan for our coastline. Chile has 4,000 kilometers of coast, and we will develop a new adaptation plan for our coastline because we are vulnerable for the effects of climate change, and we need to work on that also. And that is a small resume of what we consider on our NDC.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, it is a very informative explanation about your NDCs. So we just heard about the key components of Chilean NDC. Now I would like to invite another country representative, Director General Chung from Republic of Korea. The year of 2020 can be remembered as a milestone for Korea's climate action. Korea also submitted its updated NDC in December last year. So, Director General Chung, can you briefly explain what are the key differences in the updated NDC of Korea? Also, I noticed that this year, 2021, Korea is going to host P4g Summit. Maybe you can explain about what P4g is, and also what will be discussed during the summit, and what will be the P4g's contribution to the global community's climate action. So over to you, Director General Chung.
Thank you. Good morning. I am very pleased to be part of this meaningful event. This attests to the fact that Korea and Chile, as members of GGGI, are fully committed to and on the path towards a sustainable and inclusive growth around the world. Before I talk about our NDCs and also our plans for the P4g, let me just briefly talk about some of the things that we have already professed to the world, and those are the NDC, Green New Deal, carbon neutrality by 2050, and our submittal of LEDs, and also the SDGs. They all came out in different periods, often with different the government agencies to back them. So we are all talking about the same thing, basically, but well, in a different format. And the goal or the plan for us is how we can best integrate and align them for the ultimate goal of going carbon neutral by 2050. And it seems Chile, you have a better structure now than us, but well, we are going to get there at one point. And about the NDCs, well, there are well, the 5 key updates. First is the fact that we have set the target of reducing our carbon, our greenhouse gas emission by 1/4 of our total emission, which amounts to 710 million metric tons within approximately 10 years from the base year 2017. And second is that pursuant to paragraph 4 of Article 4 of the Paris Agreement, the Republic of Korea has replaced the business as usual base reduction target with an economy-wide absolute emissions reduction target. So Korea's national greenhouse gas reduction target for 2030, excuse me, communicated through the updated NDC is 24.4% reduction from 2017 emission level. Third is that Korea has increased its share of domestic reduction from 20 million tons to around 280 million tons through its continuing mitigation efforts, such as the ban on construction of new coal power plants. Fourth, Korea updated our NDC last year by voluntarily applying the Paris rulebook in advance. So the technical elements of our NDCs is described according to the Paris rulebook. Last but not least, Korea plans to use the voluntary cooperation under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement as a complementary measure to its domestic mitigation efforts, including the LULUCF to achieve its targets. And this is not the end of the story. We'll be updating our NDCs throughout the next few years, and we'll be submitting our more ambitious NDC by 2025 so that we can achieve our 2050 carbon neutrality goal as we have already announced to the world. For the P4g Summit, it has been postponed from last June to this May. So the dates are in. So it will happen from May 30th to 31st. So P4g, as you know, is an global initiative started by Denmark with the help of 11 other countries, including Korea. And this initiative is a complementary initiative to support the Paris Agreement and outside of the UN framework, and also with the participation of private sectors. So this actually reflects this new climate regime that we are in right now. So as 2021 begins, as the year of action to achieve the Paris Agreement targets, we plan to make the P4g Summit as a stepping stone towards the COP26 later in the year. And Chile is also invited. I hope you can be represented at the highest level in the P4g Summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General Chung. It is very exciting to hear that Korea announced net zero by 2050, because we all know that Korea's economic structure is very energy intensive, and major industry of Korea is pretty dependent on fossil fuel energies. However, it is really ambitious plan for Korea to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. And I am sure that NDC is a key tool, key vehicle to make this ambitious plan into an action. So thank you very much for sharing Korea's ambition, as well as Korea's plan to host the P4g Summit in May this year. By the way, GGGI is also a partner of P4g. Therefore, we are closely working with Korea and P4g Secretariat, P4g Hub, to make the summit a great success. Next, I would like to move to inviting international organizations representatives. Let me check whether our colleague from GCF is connected. Hello. Anya, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. Can you? Hello.
Okay, great. So if you don't mind, can you turn on your video so I can see you?
My video is on according to my screen. Can you not see me?
Oh yes, now I can see you. Wonderful,
Okay. Great.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining. So Anya, Green Climate Fund, GCF, is the world's largest solely dedicated fund helping countries reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and enhance their ability to respond to climate change. So I'm sure that GCF is working for greenhouse gas emission reduction and development of NDCs of countries. So please share how GCF is helping countries to raise ambitions in their NDCs. So maybe you can elaborate GCF's works to support the development or improvement of NDCs for developing countries. And my second question is, particularly under COVID-19 pandemic, many developing countries, they are struggling with economic falling. So how can NDC be leveraged to make national recovery measures be green and climate friendly? So how can developing countries NDCs be closely connected to the economic measures, and what will be the role of GCF in helping developing countries to effectively address both climate change and economic recovery due to the COVID-19 pandemic? So you have two questions, but those two are very closely interlinked, I think. So you have the floor, Anya.
Thank you so much. And good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting GCF to be part of this important discussion. Yes, so indeed, GCF is a young fund. It was born in Cancun, in Mexico in 2010. But it really is the chief financial mechanism of the UNFCCC climate resilience. As you mentioned, we are the largest climate fund, but the really unique aspect, I think, of GCF is that we're the only climate fund which is very strictly balanced between mitigation and adaptation. And in these 5 years of operation since 2015, we have managed to deliver 50% of our investments on the mitigation side and 50% of our investments on the adaptation side. Now, having said that, what we're starting to see more and more is that countries are submitting cross-cutting projects. And as Chile mentioned in discussing their excellent NDC earlier on today, we're seeing that countries are actually integrating adaptation measures also into their NDCs. And I believe that this kind of integration going forward is extremely important, so that whatever we do and whatever the COVID stimulus measures are spent on, that the outcome is both low emissions and climate resilient. So if we think about resilient infrastructure, for example, and resilient infrastructure is going to be a part of many of these Green New Deals that countries are coming up with. It's extremely important that, on the one hand, that all of this new infrastructure is as low emission as possible, bringing into play the new technologies such as green cement, for example, low emission cement, so that it becomes as resilient as possible, as well as being low emissions or lower emissions than infrastructure has been in the past. So GCF is working a lot with coalitions such as the CCRI, the Coalition for Climate Resilient Investment, to come up with building codes and other methodologies for delivering this sort of low emission infrastructure. But coming back to your question about the NDCs, so indeed, the GCF supports all countries from the non-Annex 1 countries under the UNFCCC, with a priority on the least developed countries, African countries, and the small island developing states, to develop NDCs. And under our readiness program, every country is entitled to up to $1 million per country per year to develop NDCs. We also encourage countries to take a step further beyond their NDCs and to develop investment plans and country programs, so that there are then specific steps that the country takes, and also making it very clear to potential private investors how the country intends to implement those NDCs and what the opportunities might be for private investment within the NDCs and within the climate actions.
Hello, Anya.
Important to lead to a pipeline of bankable projects at the end of the day, which could then be submitted to some. Yes, hello?
Yes, actually, I mean, the connection was not very good. So just, can you repeat your just last sentence again? Because I think we lost your part regarding the NDCs and bankable projects somewhere there. Yes.
Okay, yes, yeah. I wanted to emphasize that the NDC, through developing a specific investment plan, the NDC can then lead to a pipeline of bankable projects. And we're really encouraging countries, again, to have this integrated aspect to these investment plans. Studies have shown that if the NDCs are implemented in an integrated way, and that you don't have projects in sort of siloed areas, but you have more integrated projects across sectors, that you can save up to 40% in terms of the investments by applying it through an integrated plan. And then finally, in terms of responding to where countries are at the moment with the COVID economic crisis, at high levels of indebtedness, high levels of unemployment, GCF has responded in two specific ways. One is that we have actually implemented a rapid readiness.
Hello? Hello, Anya?
The current window is open until the end of February 2021, where countries, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know why, but maybe there is a little technical problem in the connection. Therefore, you just mentioned that GCF is providing countries under the COVID-19 with two specific ways.
Yes.
Yes, and then can you just continue after that? So what are the two specific ways GCF is taking actions?
So the first is a rapid readiness window.
I see.
So I mentioned earlier that countries can access up to $1 million per country per year for preparing NDCs. But under this COVID recovery plan, we're providing this rapid readiness up to $600,000 within 60 days. For countries that need to come up with really rapid proposals. And we have an example, for instance, in Africa, we've opened up a specific facility for supporting renewable energy plants that are falling into severe economic trouble at the moment, to provide loans and guarantees to tide them over to be able to continue operating. A second way in which we are supporting countries during this COVID recovery period and to develop green stimulus plans is to look at, for example, debt for climate swaps and other innovative financial instruments. But just to say one the debtor countries, and we hope to announce a couple of specific examples at COP26, where countries can convert their debt with the agreement of the creditor country to actually be implementing mitigation and adaptation projects through GCF. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of this discussion.
Thank you very much, Anya. Very pleased to hear that GCF is really trying to apply innovative financial measures to help developing countries. As all of us are very well aware of, actually, developing countries are really severely hit by the pandemic, and a lot of people, they lost jobs, and economies are falling down, and it is indeed it should be a global effort to recover from the difficult situation, and also we have to build back better. So we have to encourage developing countries to invest further in green areas, not in brown areas, because as far as I remember, during the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. Some countries invested a lot in green areas. However, at the same time, they invested in brown industry as well. Therefore, although temporarily greenhouse gas emission was reduced during 2008 and 2009, however, after 2010, the emission increased again, and we should not make that mistake again. And we have to encourage countries to really be innovative in making their green economic transition. And in that sense, I would like to invite Ingvild from GGGI. Ingvild, GGGI is supporting developing countries and emerging economies to make a green transition of their economies. And one of the tool to make the green transition happen is developing ambitious climate change action plan, NDCs, or low emission development strategy. So please explain what support GGGI is providing for countries to develop their ambitious national climate action plans. And my second question is, what do you think are the main struggles? What are the key hurdles in helping countries to raise their level of ambition, to improve the level of ambition in their climate change action plan, NDCs, or low emission development strategy? So over to you, Ingvild, and please turn on your camera.
Yes, thank you very much, Jenny. My camera is on, so I hope you can see me. Thank you also very much to the Embassy of Chile for the invitation to join you today. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to represent also my colleagues in Latin America who are doing very good work together with governments in the region. So GGGI, as you may know, we have operations in 40 member and partner countries worldwide, and we are, as Jenny mentioned, working on the transition towards inclusive green growth and low carbon development pathways. We are supporting a number of countries directly on this NDC enhancement process, together with partners such as the NDC Partnership and GCF and others. We are also supporting the development of long-term low emission and resilient development strategies, and we are happy to start shortly with a partnership with AFD in Ethiopia and Burkina Faso. On that, and we are doing quite a lot of work also to support the mainstreaming of NDCs in different instruments, such as green growth plans at national or subnational levels, or sector strategies in, for example, forestry, sustainable energy, waste, transport, and a few other sectors. And as was mentioned also by some of the other panelists, the importance here is, on the one hand, we want to see increased ambitions, and we want to see these fabulous NDC documents presented, but the important thing is to see it all the way through along the value chain towards actual implementation. So GGGI is also focused on supporting governments develop pipelines of bankable projects and finance mobilization at the end of the day. A couple of examples of how we work, and to use a couple of examples from Latin America. In Colombia, we've been working with the government since 2013, where we are bringing green growth onto the national development agenda and contributing particularly towards the achievement of the government's deforestation objectives and in meeting NDCs and SDG targets. The focus in Colombia is on sustainable landscapes, bioeconomy value chain development, and sustainable energy, always very much focused on the development of bankable opportunities and finance mobilization and securing natural capital alongside of sustainable livelihoods and decent job creations for communities, as has been highlighted also by Carolina earlier in the Chilean NDC, the importance of the social pillar, making sure that climate action works for local communities. Similarly, in Peru, we have worked with the government in Peru since 2013, together with partners there, also bringing the green growth onto the national development agenda and supporting the government meeting NDC commitments and other international commitments in, for example, forestry, agriculture, water resource policy. And one of the entry points we found working with the government of Peru is to increase the competitiveness of Peruvian industry by bolster the efficiency in use of key natural resources. We have worked a lot with the Ministry of Environment in Peru, also on the green growth analysis and capacity building and technical assistance, also to maximize these opportunities to create synergies between social, economic, and environmental sustainability. So one of the areas we are really developing into also in Peru now is in forestry, and through the delivery under the joint declaration of intent between the governments of Norway and Germany and Peru, we are supporting also the provision of agroforestry concessions to smallholder producers, again really highlighting the social components of climate action, seeing really the link between social livelihoods and empowerment of smallholders and meeting both mitigation and not least adaptation targets. So that's a couple of examples from the region. Now, in terms of what the struggles are in raising ambitions, obviously 2020 was the year of ambition that turned into the year of COVID recovery, unfortunately. I think we have seen really promising efforts. I mean, we've been working with governments all over the world, and we've seen some unwavering commitment from our counterparts in trying to meet the deadlines of revised NDCs, in some cases succeeding, and in other cases, unfortunately, it has been delayed. I think what we have taken away from 2020 is that it was the year that the world came together in response to COVID in some ways. But I think particularly the climate as a political agenda is complicated because of the fact that we need this whole of economy, whole of society, whole of government approaches that require a lot of coordination and integrated approaches across ministries. So climate may not lend itself very well to the political reality of short-term needs and re-election cycles. So what we have found in GGGI is really, again, the importance of highlighting how climate action and climate ambitions also help generate employment and other social economic co-benefits. So that you can, in fact, have climate action while also stimulating the economy and generating social welfare. So I think that's really important to highlight. And of course, there are a couple of things that we are really looking forward to towards COP26, also in ironing out some of those rules that we see are needed to more effectively implement climate actions. And that includes increased focus on our ability to actually measure the impact of climate action, which in turns will also support the mobilization of climate finance. And we are also looking forward to having a clear rulebook around Article 6 and market mechanisms for carbon pricing, which we in GGGI believe is going to be important moving forward to close the financial gaps for NDC implementation. So thank you. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you. Back to you, Jenny.
Thank you very much, Ingeveld, for sharing what GGGI is doing to support the developing countries' improvement of level of ambition. And also you described the struggles, particularly under the pandemic, all countries are facing. We have silver lining, although, as vaccine is rolling out, we hope in 2021, we will enjoy our life better than last year. And also this year must the start of the decade of action, decade of implementation, by redoubling countries' efforts to address effectively the Paris Agreement implementation. Let me go to the second round of discussion. However, before moving there, I have questions. I have two questions, one for Anja and one for Ingeveld. So when if I read the question in the chatting room, so Anja, there is a clarification question actually. Does Anja have a reference that she would recommend that outlines how integrated projects and avoiding silos may lead up to 40% savings in terms of project cost? Anja, you mentioned that countries, when they avoid silos, they can save 40% of costs. So these 40% savings means in the project cost. Can you just elaborate, clarify to this question?
Okay. Want me to do that straight away. So, well, some examples of that is if one is, for example, linking resilient infrastructure with renewable energy, so that building back, one makes sure that one is using clean energy to actually do the new construction, and that the new buildings, once they're constructed.
Hello.
Another is integrating water resource management into whatever investments are being made. Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, but when you just started your response, actually the connection was not very good. So if you repeat your answer, it will be very appreciated. Yes, so you have a reference regarding the cost saving of the integrated projects.
Yes, so I can come back to you and I'll put the reference in the chat.
Okay.
My examples were, for example, linking renewable energy investments with investments in resilient infrastructure and resilient buildings. So that's your example, and also integrating water resource management into projects from the get-go, rather than doing water resources management as a separate, perhaps, adaptation issue. Thank you. Over.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. And if you share in the chatting room in written form, it will be very appreciated. By the way, next question is to Ingeveld. So Ingeveld, is GGGI in renewable energy development? Is GGGI involved in renewable energy development in Africa? So what are the opportunities for renewable energy consultants like me to contribute to these green projects? Ingrid, I think you are muted. Please unmute your microphone.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mukesh, for this question. We are indeed working on renewable energy in Africa alongside other sectors. We are now starting a very exciting collaboration with funding from Denmark on solar-powered irrigation, which is an example of an integrated approach that Anja mentioned earlier in sort of energy and in agriculture. So that's one of our initiatives on the African continent. I will share the link to our career pages in the chat room. It's all hands on deck these days, so we are always looking for good talent. So thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Ingvild. By the way, Carolina, in the chatting room, there is a request to send your file again. By the way, if you send the file to the organizer, to GGGI, GGGI will upload the file in the link. Okay, let's move to the second round of discussion. So Carolina, actually Chilean NDC also includes an integration component with areas such as circular economy and nature-based solutions, which are very important for ensuring sustainable development. So how can these areas like circular economy and nature-based solution contribute to mitigation and adaptation goals? So because these two new integration components are included in Chilean NDC, what is the linkage between these components with climate change action, so mitigation and adaptation? Can you elaborate further? Thank you.
Yes, of course, it's a very good question. Circular economy is totally related with climate change and climate action because, as you may all know, waste, when you treat waste and when you don't treat, it creates greenhouse gas emissions like methane, for example. And when you consider the treatment and a good circular economy process, you decrease the waste and also you could manage that. And I want also to consider something that you were talking before regarding build back better, because I want to say to you that Chile has committed that at least 30% of its public investment for the recovery after COVID-19 will serve to accelerate our transitions to sustainable development. And in order to classify these actions that are sustainable, we are using our new NDC that has, as I showed before, concrete actions, and also we are using our evaluation framework on green bonds, on green sovereign bonds of the Climate Bond Initiative. And that we have, for example, many adaptation projects that are considering sustainable investment. And it is really important because we have projects for coastline that I was saying before, and also projects for circular economy with a lot of innovation and a lot of people working on the territories. That is really important for adaptation, and you were asking me that. So that is the relation that we are considering for our recovery plan using our NDC, and we recommend, of course, all the country that could do the same. It is really useful for us, and we hope for a lot of other countries.
Thank you, Carolina. Now I'd like to invite Director General Chung again. Mr. Director General, if the world is to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius ambition, countries like Korea needs to do more than just to reduce its own greenhouse gas emission. So how can Korea actually contribute to global efforts in mitigating emissions? As far as I understand, Korea announced a very innovative plan called Green New Deal. So Korea's Green New Deal can play a role in global efforts to mitigate greenhouse gas emission. What is your view? Over to you.
Oh, thank you, Ambassador Kim. Well, first of all, I think working with you, the GGGI, is actually one of the things that I'm sure is quite important in our effort to spread the spread the word on the inclusive and sustainable growth around the world. And also, now we are in the later phase of revising our green ODA policy. So that's one of the things that we are doing to promote green growth around the world, and also cooperating with GCF, which is based in Korea, also is quite helpful. When it comes to Green New Deal, this is more of a short-term recovery package that we announced. So what this does is basically to aim for we're creating jobs. We have a numerical target that's about 659,000 jobs, green jobs, with an investment of $62 billion in the next 5 years until 2025. But whether this is going to help our global effort, well, we'll have to see. As I said, NDC, LEDS, carbon neutrality, Green New Deal, they all have to be aligned and integrated. So we are still in the process, but definitely the global aspect is definitely in our mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General Chung. Yes, Republic of Korea is closely working with GGGI as well, and Korea is really, I think, leading the role, is playing its leadership role in global efforts for climate action. Let me invite Anya again. So Anya, actually working, although government is working hard for climate action, but only government is not the only player in this efforts. Actually, government and private sector, they must closely work together. In your previous intervention, you slightly touched upon about bankable project. So can you just elaborate further what activities actually GCF is supporting in order to engage more private sector's green investment? How can you just encourage the strong collaboration between the government and private sector?
Okay, thanks a lot for this question. So I just wanted to say that I found the reference that you were asking for, by the way, for making savings in these integrated investment plans. It's a book that was published last year called Beyond the Gap: How Countries Can Afford the Infrastructure They Need While Protecting the Planet. So that's very much recommended. Yeah, with regard to the role of the private sector, it's absolutely essential that we can, only through the involvement of the private sector can we really help to move towards a just transition. And GCF is engaged in reaching out to the private sector as actively as possible. We have a private sector conference every year, and we find that there's tremendous interest, tremendous involvement. Even last year in 2020, when we had to hold the entire conference online, we had about 4,000 online participants. And I think this demonstrates the tremendous interest that the private sector has in engaging. There is more, a clearer role for the private sector investment than in other sectors. So in renewable energies, for example, there's very little need in fact, for the GCF to be directly supporting renewable energy projects, because the business case for renewable energy investments is now so clear that the price of renewable energies has come down to such an extent that it is being, this tremendous expansion we're seeing is being largely private sector driven. But having said that, we are using financial instruments to really support investments in for de-risking, for example, investments in renewable energy for the private sector across Africa, for example. We're supporting the development of small grids in remote rural areas, and we're looking to de-risking, for example, through equity investments and guarantees as well. Another example I'd like to give is where we're looking at involving the private sector in non-traditional activities, particularly more on the adaptation side. But if we look at wastewater treatment, for example, a previous speaker mentioned the tremendous value, in fact, of wastewater treatment, both on the mitigation side and on the adaptation side, where you can get energy from biogas from the wastewater treatment. Now, are developing financial instruments with partners, such as the Development Bank of Southern Africa, to develop a new asset class where wastewater treatment plants would become a new asset class for private investors to invest in. And that is achieved through de-risking that investment by creating a large guarantee fund. We're working with 59 municipalities across Southern Africa to actually invest in these wastewater treatment plants. And on the agriculture side as well, we've got significant successes now in more private sector investment in both the adaptation side and the mitigation side in agriculture. So these are some examples. We're really hoping to find more cross-cutting projects, as I mentioned. And this is what we really also encourage the private sector to take a step beyond, to look at the climate risks in every investment that they make, and to talk to us about how we can help to de-risk those investments. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Anya. Now I'd like to invite Ingvild again. So Ingvild, so can you also elaborate GGGI's activities to translate national plans into real action, including climate investment and job creation as well? So it's GGGI, it's supporting countries develop green deals, something similar, or to boost job creation, to boost economy. Please share your organization's efforts in this area.
Yes, thank you very much, Jenny. So once the unprecedented scale of the COVID pandemic became clear, GGGI went in dialogue with our partners and members to reassess our approaches to green growth, understanding immediately that alongside of the medical response, the focus and the priority now is on saving jobs, boosting the economy, mitigating the long-lasting impacts of the pandemic. So we found that we are quite well positioned because we have put employment and socioeconomic co-benefits really at the forefront of our definition of green growth, even before the pandemic. So we are now just adding emphasis on those components, and we are explicitly, I guess we can say that in all the 40 countries where we have operations, we are probably at this point doing something linked to to job creation and green recovery, but explicitly in 11 countries, we have really zoomed in to focus on assessing potential for job creation, for example, under NDC targets, where our brilliant economists are finding that investments in renewable energy and energy efficiency creates more employment per investment unit than investment in the fossil fuel technologies. Colombia is a good example of the approach we are taking in our support to the government's green recovery, where we are doing an assessment looking at coal being, of course, very important to the local economy in the coal producing territories of Colombia. It creates 35,000 jobs and generates about 40% of the GDP in these areas. So clearly coal is important politically and economically in these regions in Colombia. We are trying to see what, anticipating that the demand for coal will drop over the coming 15 years, we are looking to see what a forestry-based economy might look like, and finding that by reforesting 2 million hectares of forest, we may be able to create at least 80,000 jobs and value to the economy. So showing that there are alternatives to coal, I think is very important, and to give the confidence to the government and to policymakers to bring those components into the green recovery efforts. Similarly, in Peru, we are trying to do a high-level assessment on potential for green jobs creation, which we also help aim to provide in support of green recovery packages. In Mexico, we have done a bit more of an analysis of the state-level recovery packages to find where we could boost the environmental and climate co-benefits, and support governments at state level to generate financial and investment plans to make the recovery packages more green. So that's the way that we work, particularly on green recovery in GGGI. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you very much. I think we already passed the time we have to finish for this. We have to finish this session. By the way, I thank all panelists for sharing your thoughts and results your countries and your organizations are producing. I'm sure that Chile, and as the president of COP25, is leading global efforts for climate action, and Korea is also contributing a lot by many innovative initiatives, not only the NDC, but also Green Deals, hosting global events, and also GCF and GGGI supporting developing countries to really make their green transition in economy happen, possible. Therefore, I'm sure that today's discussion will strongly contribute to the success of P4g Summit in May this year, and also the successful completion, success of the COP26 in Glasgow at the end of this year. Because of time constraint, I would like to bring this session to the end. By the way, I would like to invite you, the panelists, to visit our chatting room, because there are certain questions there. So if you're fine, please answer those questions as much as you can. So thank you again for sharing your thoughts in this session, and I would like to invite Hee-kyung, our whole event moderator. Hee-kyung, over to you.
Thank you, Jenny, and the panelists. That was a very interactive session. So now let's move on to session 2. The moderator of session 2 is Gloria Cid Carreño, Ambassador of Chile to the Republic of Korea. Now, over to you, Gloria.
Hello everyone, and I hope you can hear me. Good night and good morning to everyone, wherever you are joining us today. In this second session, the name of the song is Ocean and Synergies between the UNFCCC and CBD. These are the two conventions that are regarding to Paris Climate Accord and also to the biodiversity. And I want to start quoting the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who has also talked about this, these two conventions. He has mentioned that there is a twin crisis of biodiversity loss and climate change as the urgent action needing to face them. In his words, the past decade was the hottest in human history. Ocean hit at the record levels, and more than 80% of the world ocean experienced a marine heat wave. And also biodiversity is collapsing. 1 million species are at risk of extinction. Due to COVID-19, both Conference of Parties, the 26th COP of the United Nations Framework for Climate Change, and the 15th COP of the Convention of Biological Diversity had to be postponed. But this year, the Convention of Biological Diversity will take place in Kunming, China. And the convention, the COP26, will be in Glasgow, as you also know. But also this year, countries will hold the Ocean Conference to protect and advance the health of the world's marine environments. For this segment, we have the Vice Minister of Water and Seas from Costa Rica, Mrs. Aide Rodriguez, in a pre-recorded message. And also we have the coordinator of the COP25 from Chile, Mr. Andrés Landerreche, who is online and who will be online the whole segment. So at the end, he will be able to answer some of your questions or address some comments. With this in mind, I would like, because I understand that this is a not easy subject, I would like to put on the table some questions in order to guide the presentation and further conversation. These questions are: how countries can galvanize the ambition required by the science in both negotiation process? Which kind of domestic actions can adopt countries to tackle climate change and halt biodiversity loss? And how nature-based solutions can contribute to these global challenges, and specifically solution based on the ocean. So now I would like to invite you to see the first video, which is from the Vice Minister of Costa Rica, Mrs. Aide Rodriguez.
Good morning or good evening to everyone. Let me begin by thanking the government of Chile and the Global Green Growth Institute for organizing this timely event. 2020 left us with many challenges and many lessons learned. Mainly that the climate change and biodiversity loss crisis are deeply connected and must be addressed in a coordinated manner if we are to survive. Scientists have been telling us this for many, many years, and they demonstrated by several reports, such as the IPCC report. But the emergency of the COVID-19 pandemic brought us these topics to the forefront of political actions. The health emergency revealed just how deep our vulnerabilities are, how we depend on a clean and healthy environment to be safe, and underscored the urgency to build more resilient societies that are ready to act in a coordinated manner to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss, not just to prevent future pandemics, but to ensure the sustainability of all life in our planet. For Costa Rica, including the role of ocean in the global climate change and biodiversity discussion is essential. The ocean is the greatest, the largest ecosystem of the planet and the largest carbon sink. It cannot be ignored any longer, nor treated as a free-for-all, never-ending repository of our waste. As you know, the sea accounts for 92% of Costa Rica's territory. We take our responsibility to the conservation and sustainable use of marine resources very seriously, and we understand that maintaining healthy mangroves, healthy coral reefs, and ocean floors is crucial for fish stock, and in turn, marine life also plays a crucial role in the regulation of ocean temperature. We are also aware of overfishing and seek to keep a watchful eye on this matter and on those who allow their fishing fleets to go unchecked about their business and depleting and destroying precious resources. Within a humble patch of our planet, Costa Rica holds 6% of the world's biodiversity, which gives us an immense responsibility, not only with our citizens, but with all societies at large. Present and future generations of living beings are counting on us to build stronger paths to conserve and sustainable use of our natural resources. My country has proven to be a nature-minded pathway that is not only environmentally responsible, but also economically sound. A recent report showed that protected areas and national parks have provided financial benefits of over $1.9 billion in 2018 alone. This represents 3.23% of Costa Rica's GDP, and of course, a huge share of our income comes from ecotourism, which is highly dependent on clean ocean and rich forests. Healthy and resilient oceans are essential for our survival. Our societies, particularly coastal communities, depend on them for food security and social, cultural, and economical development. We are a small, but a very, very ambitious country. We understand that we need to add to the collective ambition of the international community to achieve the Paris Agreement goals and to have a very solid post-2020 biodiversity framework. In this spirit, a global cooperation, Costa Rica is leading with France and the United Kingdom, the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, the HAC, a coalition of more than 50 countries committed to achieving the protection of 30% of our world's land and marine ecosystems by 2030. Protecting 30% of the planet will improve the quality of life and well-being of our communities and will help us achieve a fair and adaptive society, laying the foundation for the fulfillment of the 2030 agenda. Considering that we currently have protected only at the world's level 7% of the ocean, this is an ambitious goal, we know, but we strongly believe it is achievable. Protecting 30% of our ocean will help us address both climate change and biodiversity loss. Climate models show that we are approaching a tipping point. If currently trends in habitat conversion and emissions do not peak by 2030, then it will become impossible to remain below 1.5 degrees. On a national level, we have also committed to achieving the protection of 30% of our marine territory by 2030, and acknowledge that we also need to ensure proper maintenance and sustainability of these conservation efforts. Therefore, I'm proud to announce that we have launched the Forever Blue Fund, which will ensure the financial sustainability and the long-term conservation of our marine biodiversity. Furthermore, Costa Rica believes that nature-based solutions are the best tools we have to restore our planet and to guarantee long-term sustainability well-being. We are also convinced that nature-based solutions have the potential to become the ideal link between the climate and biodiversity agendas, to create synergies between them and optimize resources and results. We must start connecting the dots. This is the time. We need to start tackling climate change and biodiversity loss as two sides of the same coin. The policies in the national commitments through NDCs and biodiversity agreements should maximize synergies between climate and biodiversity and minimize trade-offs. One way to go is to join forces and incorporate the language of nature-based solutions into the decisions of COP15 and COP26. Finally, and I have to say this, let's not forget that there are other international processes going on that will help us achieve the Paris Agreement goals and the post-2020 biodiversity framework. I'm talking here about the BB&J process and the Code for Exploration and Exploitation of Minerals in the Seabed. Here, we need to be ambitious and take actions now. Our ocean beyond national jurisdictions and the deep sea cannot wait any longer. As President Alvarado said during the launch of the High Ambition Coalition, now it is not the time to be scared, but to be brave and take bold actions. We invite you to act, to put concrete commitments on the table, and to always look upon the ocean as our hope, an active stakeholder who deserves a seat at all international and domestic development tables. The ocean has supported our livelihoods for millions of years. Let's not turn our backs on it, but rather embrace it with actions, kindness, and gratitude. Many, many thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Vice Minister of Water and Seas from Costa Rica. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Andrés Landerreche, from Chile, who is going to address this important subject. Andrés. Andrés, we cannot hear you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you very much. And I'm quite pleased or delighted to join you tonight or this morning for you. And I would like to also thank you both, the Embassy of Chile and the Global Green Growth Institute, for organizing this webinar that allow us to discuss very interesting subject, particularly in the case of this panel, oceans and synergies between the UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity. So as far as your questions, I think they are all very, very relevant. So if you allow me, I will start discussing a little bit your first question regarding how countries can galvanize the ambition required by the science in both negotiation process. So my first comment would be, first, it's good to be the last speaker, so I can benefit of all the previous discussions and presentations. That's good. So I don't need to go into further details that have been covered, but I can probably say a few words from different angles and aspects. So as far as how countries can galvanize the ambition, Those are really good questions, because at the end of the day, and I have to be very honest, speaking from my experience, particularly in COP25 in Madrid, it's difficult to believe, but there's still countries that are climate skeptics or climate deniers. So the first thing that we need to do as a international community and countries on an individual approach is to follow science, which sounds pretty basic, but this is it's been really struggle in the last two rounds of negotiations, COP24 and COP25, to really make countries agree on the importance and welcoming these reports and take the content of that research as the basis for the decision-making process. So something that it seems very, very normal is not that easy. Okay, so that would be my first reaction, the importance of really taking the IPCC reports, particularly the ones published in 2019, the one regarding ocean and the one regarding land. We also need to take very close consideration to the report also launched in 2019 regarding the extreme pace of our biodiversity, global biodiversity loss. That's also something that we need to bear in mind. So that's what they need to do at an international level. At a national level, every country also have their own, sovereign right to define their own environmental and development policies, but it is important that to have in mind that we are experiencing global problems, global challenges that require global responses, and the only way that we have currently is through our multilateral negotiation processes, and those processes take time. Some of them move at a very low pace, so I would invite countries to take the necessary sense of urgency that the climate challenge crisis deserves. It also takes very seriously the biodiversity loss in their respective countries. Okay, so countries sometimes do coalitions to galvanize this ambition. Chile, as you already know, is part of the HAC, which is the Highline Alliance coalition that aims at carbon neutrality. We're also members of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People that is led by Costa Rica, as you just heard. We're also members of the Carbon Neutrality Coalition led by Laurence Tubiana. And we also have our own coalition that we launched during the Secretary General Climate Summit in September 2019. Okay, that's the Climate Ambition Alliance. Not sure whether you heard about the alliance, but it's something that is quite unique, but because gets together parties to the UNFCCC convention with non-state actors. And this is a point I would really like to highlight, the role of non-state actors in climate action, okay? Because parties to the convention, they have their obligations under the convention, under the Paris Agreement, okay? And they still have outstanding clauses of the Paris Agreement rulebook to finalize, we hope, in Glasgow next November, okay? So in order to galvanize ambition and promote that, we launched during that summit the Climate Ambition Alliance that get countries together with a common goal, carbon neutrality by 2050 at the latest. and that would suppose to submit enhanced, very ambitious NDCs last year, and hopefully also this year towards COP26, and also have long-term vision, long-term climate strategies to support that goal. Okay, so the beauty of our Climate Ambition Alliance is that also we have a very important group of non-state actors. I think the role of non-state actors is critical in climate action. And I would just say that, for example, in our NDC that Carolina presented today, she refers to our adaptation pillar or component in the NDC, which normally NDCs are the vehicle to have a plan to mitigate carbon emissions, but adaptation is a key component. And we in Chile see that everything is interconnected. So we open our NDC to a public consultation process, and out of that process, the outcome was to have even more commitment to more ambitious NDC in new elements that we never thought possible. After consultation, they were possible. So my key message here, Ambassador, is that you need to, when you prepare your NDCs, when you prepare your long-term strategy and climate actions, you need to have from the very get-go the involvement of all your relevant stakeholders, local community, indigenous population, academia, everything. We have identified about 10 big group of stakeholders, and we consult with all of them. So as important as the commitment and the outcome of our NDC was the process that we made, some of the recommendation as far as social pillar and some social elements of the just transition strategy are the result of having a very rich, very open and inclusive consultation process. So that would be as far as both processes. Now, I just would like to draw a distinction between climate change and biodiversity processes. Although we are trying to lead efforts, we need to be very realistic that the multilateral process takes more time than the expectation that the civil society, the general public has. After all, we adopted the Climate Change Convention in 1992 during the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, 1992. So it's been a long way, and we haven't, as an international community, fulfilled the objective of the convention as yet, which is to stabilize the greenhouse gases emission to a level that won't impact the climate change, global climate, I would say. So things are tough, and there have been a couple of approaches on the way. First was the Kyoto Protocol approach that divided the world in developed and developing countries, developed countries with very important binding commissions in terms of reduction, and then the countries with no Annex 1, right, that they didn't have any commitment. That approach didn't work. We couldn't have all the major emitters within that protocol, and then years down the road, the new approach is the Paris Agreement approach that relies on voluntary commitments, right? And those voluntary commitments are the reflections of what countries can do, cannot do as far as mitigation is concerned. So in that sense, an effective NDC or an effective climate change policy require necessarily to have broad support from your constituencies, so to speak, towards civil society or your private sector. And you can only do that by trying, and that's what we're trying to do in Chile, to have a climate policy, which is a state policy. It won't change from an administration to another administration, because climate change requires to have a long-term view. So that we're working with a clear objective of carbon neutrality by 2050, and that gives us a sense of direction. We have a clear roadmap, and we're working to get that. Now, if you allow me, Ambassador, I would like to say a few words as far as adaptation is concerned, because although we are leading efforts as far as NDC and mitigation efforts, Chile and most countries in Latin America in particular are very vulnerable to climate change. So for us, adaptation is as important as mitigation. And so we have a two-pronged approach here, a strong mitigation component, but a very strong adaptation component. We are in the process of updating our national adaptation plan. We already have 4 regional, big macro region in terms of regional plans. And we hope by 2030, it's part of the commitment of our NDC, to have regional climate plan for all our 16 regions nationwide. We also have a set of sectoral adaptation plans for agriculture, for fishing, for forestry, and we are working now on the mining sectoral plan. So as far as adaptation, being Chile a country that has 7 of the 9 vulnerability criteria, it is a very important element that we are working now, because we are in the process of submitting our long-term climate change strategy. We are hoping to submit this to public consultation at the end of the first quarter, so we'll have a complete strategy finalized before COP26. Now, Ambassador, if you allow me, since I have the floor and I'm working on the, we preside the bureau of the conference. We have had last year to take difficult decisions in terms of postponing first the meeting of the subsidiary bodies last June, and then the actual COP. And we have postponed that to November this year. So we have had the presidency almost for 2 years in a very challenging environment with a pandemic, right? COVID-19 impacting all kind of processes, but I'm afraid climate change is not in quarantine and it's not taking some time off, and we need to continue working in our climate action plans. And in that sense, what we're doing now is that since we have experienced a very tough economic decline or impact because of the lockdowns and the quarantine, we see our NDC as a blueprint, as a beacon to guide our efforts for a recovery that is greener, that is sustainable, that is cleaner. And so what we're doing now in Chile is aligning our climate goals with our green recovery goals. I don't know whether would you like me, Ambassador, to change to the other question, or I can continue speaking non-stops. Please stop me if you think.
Okay, thank you, Andres. We are almost on time, but I have a question here for you. Where can I find Chile's energy sector plan for adaptation and mitigation? Also have a question for Costa Rica, but unfortunately the Vice Minister is not online, so probably we are going to give this question to the Ambassador of Costa Rica in Korea, so probably he can answer that, not today, but later. So I give you this with I leave you, Andres, with this question about the where can I find Chile's energy sector plan?
Okay, I was going through my paper to see whether I have the exact plan, but if not, I'll come back to you on this. I'm pretty sure someone from my team will help me out with this. But I just want to highlight, there's so many things that I would like to highlight, but in terms of having a really effective climate action approach, is the same as having a good environmental management approach. You need to have the information. You cannot measure, you cannot, really count. You cannot, and then for us, it's very important what we did in October. We launched, we call the Climatic Risk Atlas, okay? Which is a project that we did with the German government, and we now have our ArcClim, which is a software, a platform where we can determine the impact of climate change throughout the country, throughout sector, regions. We can forecast whether it will rain or will be a drought in the coming years. So that would allow, and this is done at community level, at the very sort of bottoms up level, and then we go up the ladder. So that's really important to identify the risk so we can manage the risk and probably prevent them, or in the worst case scenario, mitigate them once they occur. Okay, that is as far as the ArcClim is concerned. As far as the energy sector, I would like to highlight that we are in the process of decarbonizing our economy. Our matrix, that means that we are closing, and we have a calendar of closures of carbon coal plants with a view to removing the old ones, and then with a view to be free of coal plant by 2030, hopefully. But as we said and committed in our NDC, it's not just closing industries and people losing jobs and families being impacted. So we are doing this gradually, and we are building the necessary capacity of those workers, and we're doing with them. So in the month of May, we launched a just transition strategy, but it's spearheaded by the Minister of Energy, Minister of Labor, and the Minister of Environment. I just want to also put this into a bigger context, the context of the Agenda 2030 and the 17 ODS, or Sustainable Development Goals in English, right? Because at the end of the day, what that agenda gives us, it provides like a roadmap, a navigation chart, I would say. Because at the end of the day, every country is different. They have different capacities, different realities and resources. But at the end of the day, the 17 the development goals provide the necessary framework for countries to move forward in an integrated and coordinated approach, hopefully with an ecosystem approach in the top of our minds. I mean, at the end of the day, ocean is the biggest ecosystem. The ecosystem services they provide are essential for a livelihood. 3 billion people depend on the ocean for their current day-to-day living. So there's so many things that we need to do to galvanize ambition also in terms of ocean, Ambassador, in terms of strengthening the cooperation, scientific cooperation, as far as ocean is concerned, in terms of raising awareness of the importance of ocean, the role and status of the ocean, and then education. That's a big component, because at the end of the day, if we want to keep the ocean as the necessary reservoir and the basis of our livelihood, we need to start changing the way we think about the environment, The way we think about the ocean, the way we produce, the way we consume, and we move towards a sustainable development model. And for that, the Agenda 2030 provides the necessary guideline for countries to move forward.
Thank you.
Back to you,
Thank
Ambassador.
You, thank you very much. We are on the time, unfortunately. I've been asked to try to make a summary of the whole event. I think that's an ambition. That's an ambition to summarize everything that we've said here in just a couple of minutes. But what I would like to do here, to try to do, is that what we've been talking here, we've been talking from a global perspective. And that reminds me the 5 P's that shape the SDGs in 2015, which are people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. And all these aspects have been today treated and approached in different ways. So what we've been trying to do here is to highlight that when we have global problems, we need global solutions. And that means that everyone in our national capacity has to develop some strategies in order to deal with climate change, because climate change is a global problem. So first of all, some highlights.
Ambassador, you're in mute.
Sorry. Okay, again, 2021 is a critical year because this year is, we can count as the first year after the pandemic on where we are trying to going out the pandemic. So the importance now is to continue creating awareness at the international level of climate change and how we can tackle in our national capacities. What we also hear is that because this is a global problem, with all these aspects are interconnected, and they reinforce among each other, which is one of the beauties of the SDGs, that, and also with the goals of the climate change. So the importance here is to come up with a comprehensive approach and comprehensive strategies from everyone. And that comprehensive strategies include the means of implementation, which have been highlighted here, how to finance, how to get funds for tackle climate change in the national level. And also include the participatory process from every actor, including government, including private sector, including NGOs, including institutes, including the social, the people, and organized or not organized. So climate change is one of the best examples of how the participatory process is a key here. But we also been here about how 2 countries like Chile and Costa Rica has been designing these NDCs and how to approach at the national level through voluntary commitments. And both of us have come up with their own NDCs. Chile as one of the first in the world and the first country in the Latin America region to come up with their own NDCs. And also we hear about the ocean as a key pillar in the strategy to tackle climate change. And Costa Rica and Chile are one of the pioneers in this aspect. What we also learn here is the importance of the partnership, but also about the alliance, because the alliance are a way that some countries are moving forward and pushing forward to other states to raise awareness about what's happening here in the not only in oceans through Blue Leaders campaign for ocean protection, Climate Ambition Alliance, High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, but also about another one that some countries have come up with the decision that this is important to move and to promote within different states. And the importance also of the marine protected areas. That is something that Chile has been highlighting here because it's something that we've been working throughout this whole time. And I want to also highlight the commitment that all Korea, Chile, and Costa Rica are making through to get decarbonization through different means, and the importance to come up with plans of green global plans that include the three-dimension economical, social, and also environmental. And in this aspect, Korea is an example because Korea have come up with the global with the Green New Deal. And also, I would like to highlight that this year will take place in Korea the P4g, which is a very important coalition and partnership between government and private sector in order to support the efforts of the country to achieve goals, to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement. So I don't know if I missed something, but with this last word, I would like to thank everyone, all the people that made possible this event, starting with the collaboration of the GGGI, the MOFA, the Ministry of Environment in Chile, which has been a key in this activity, and the House authorities from Korea, Costa Rica, and Chile, especially Costa Rica, the Vice Minister that we have the pleasure to hear today. And in particular, I extend my appreciation to Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to whom I have the pleasure to meet in United Nations, and for his participation in this activity, and also the audience that today we join us and come with us from Chile and also from another parts of Asia and Latin America. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope that we can meet again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador.
Congratulations to Korea for your NDC. Thank you.
This now comes to the end of our event. So I hope you found the sessions insightful and valuable. So thank you all again for joining us early in the morning in Korea, and also late in the evening in Santiago, Chile. So we will be circulating a link to the recording shortly. So stay safe and be healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Bye.
Adios. Bye-bye.